Welcome to At Home with Music. Recently, I received a suggestion from a viewer concerning my video on modulation. So I'll put a link to the original video in the description. And in that video, I talked about 4 main types of modulation, where you change from one key to another in a song. Now, there are certainly other ways to modulate, but these are the most common. So I talked about common chord modulation, where, say, for example, you're in the key of C, and you want to modulate to, say, the key of D. You find a common chord, which in this case could be E minor. E minor being the minor 3 chord in the key of C and the minor 2 chord in the key of D. Use that as what we call the pivot chord. The pivot chord then is 2, which leads you to 5 and leads you to 1. And now you're in the key of D. And then there's the common tone modulation, which is related to the common chord. So G is a tone which is common to both C and the key of G. And so that would be a common tone modulation. And then I talked about chain modulation, which uses the circle of fifths. So say you're in the key of A, and then we start going around the circle, and we've modulated from A to F. Then there's phrase modulation, where you just jump from one key to another without a pivot chord, without a pivot note. And so on. And then there's the chromatic modulation, where you might take the bass note and raise that up half a step, and then use that to build this A7 chord, and now you're in the key of D. So now you can review these in the video that I did on modulation, and that'll help you prepare for this one. So here's the suggestion I received from a viewer, which I thought was very good. This viewer wrote, if I could just make a small suggestion, maybe if you could take a simple song like Yankee Doodle and apply the different types of modulation to show as examples to make it a little easier. So that's what we're going to do in this video. In the original video, I demonstrated these types of modulations as I just did here in a quick review by just playing some basic chord progressions. What I want to do here now is take an actual song, very simple song, and since he suggested Yankee Doodle, let's use Yankee Doodle. So it would sound something like this, played in the key of G. We're just going to take the first part of the song, by the way. I know there's a second section there, but we're just going to take this first part. We have 3 notes, I should say 3 chords. Goes from G to D, and then there's a C in there, and so on. So let's apply the common chord modulation technique. So we're playing it. And let's say we want to modulate to the key of D. And so what we did, we got to the end of Yankee Doodle the first time, and then we went to this chord. Now this is the minor 6 chord in the key of G. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But it also serves as the minor 2 chord in the key of D. Now we're in the key of D. So now we have played Yankee Doodle in G. And then using this pivot chord, we now find ourselves in the key of D. we could also use a common tone modulation. There's our common tone. Now we're in the key of C, because G is a tone that is common to both the key of G and the key of C. My pedal is running away from me on the floor here. So, that's the common tone modulation. Now, what about a chain modulation? So there I've modulated from the key of G to the key of B flat. So we go from G, C, F, B flat. And we can even take it farther if we wanted to. Now we're in E flat. So that's an example of a chain modulation using Yankee Doodle. Now what about phrase modulation? Well, that's pretty easy. We could just jump to another key without a pivot chord, without a common tone, without a chain modulation, without using a chord to help us modulate. We just jump from one key to another. Or now that's kind of abrupt, but that is a phrase modulation. Now, chromatic modulation, we use a chromatic movement in the bass. So we jump up from G in the bass to G sharp. And then we can use G sharp to play an E chord or an E7 in first inversion, and that leads us to the key of A. And then we can even do it again if we want to modulate one more time. Now we're playing Yankee Doodle in the key of B. So there's a quick demonstration of how we can use these common types of modulation techniques: the common chord or the common tone, chain modulations, phrase modulation, chromatic modulation, and now I've applied them to a simple song. So if you're playing a simple tune like Yankee Doodle, or even a more complex song, and you get to the end and you want to play it again and play it in a different key, you can apply one of these types of modulation techniques to get from one key to another. Now, the next step as we explore modulation is to get into more complex types of modulation. Say, for example, you're playing a song like Yankee Doodle, and you want to join it to another song, like Mary Had a Little Lamb or something, and they are in two different keys. Well, how can we modulate, create some kind of bridge between those two songs? And maybe one of them is in a key that's way far away from the other one. How do we do it? Well, that's something that we're going to explore in another video. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the comment section. If you'd like to support my work on Patreon, I will leave a link in the description. And I do want to say thank you to all my patrons, and also to all of you who have subscribed to the channel and liked my videos. That really helps the channel a lot. It helps YouTube send those videos out to other people who might be interested in learning more about how music works. here on At Home with Music. So thank you again for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.